I'm very pleased that you are seeing this film in Japan. It's a real pleasure for us to know that this film made 50 years ago will find a new audience. And so thank you for coming to the cinema. The film began with a conversation between the writer, Barry Hines, the producer, Tony Garnett, and me. And we had worked together on a film called Kess in 1960, 66, 68, 1968. And that had gone quite well. And we wanted to work together again. Barry's family were in South Yorkshire, a part of England, which is mainly coal mining. And Barry's family were coal miners. My family were coal miners. They were, my father's family were all coal miners and had been for many generations. So coal mining was very close to our hearts. And so we thought we would make a film that showed the two sides of miners' lives. One, like the two faces of drama, comedy and tragedy. Because the three words that spring to mind when you think of the lives of coal miners, the three words are struggle, strength, and laughter. The struggle has been for the whole time the coal mines were open. The struggle was between first the miners and the coal owners. And the coal owners from the very early days until after the war, 1948, 748, were harsh, quite cruel. They exploited the miners. When the mines became nearly a century, men, women, and children were put into the mines. Children as young as 6, 7, and 8. Miners underground, spend their lives underground, many killed, of course, because it's a dangerous job. And the miners' struggle was to get decent wages and to avoid the harsh exploitation. And the coal owners resisted. The mines were in the countryside, and they belonged to the landowners, who were the old aristocrats. And the aristocrats built houses for the miners to live in. When the miners couldn't work, too old, they were kicked out. So they had nowhere to live. Very harsh. And there were strikes. And the miners then organized the strongest trade union that we had. Powerful, militant, political. That was the struggle. The strength comes from distance, the joining together, and that is also in the job itself, because as miners underground, your life depended on the man next to you, because there would be things falling from the roof. To a danger, when you dug the coal out, the danger was it would fall back into you and bury you. It was a very dangerous job. You depended on your comrade to save you if you were in danger, and you saved them. So that solidarity was important when you're building a trade union, because you stuck together. And that was a great characteristic of the miners, and that was their strength. So struggle, strength, and also comedy. Because the absurdity of their situation sometimes, the resistance was in the form of laughter. You had to find things, the nicknames that the employers had or the managers had, and the laughing at the absurdity of their position sometimes. And the humor of miners was legendary. So those three things. And that's what we wanted to reflect in these films. For the first film is the story of a royal visit to the pit, and a royal visit to the royalty, of course, as the old aristocracy. So it was a visit like an old miner, except it was the young prince, who is now the king, our king, King Charles. Prince Charles came, and the preparation is the story of the film, what they had to do, and the absurdity of how they tried to prepare for this visit. And you will see the contradictions in what they did, and the absurdity in what they did, and that's the story of the film. The main character, in fact, all the people in the film are from the local area. Many of them are miners themselves. Manager of the pit in the story is a real life. He was a deputy, what they call a senior figure in the managing of the mine and in real life, Jackie Shin. And he also is a local entertainer. He makes people laugh for a living when he's not being an important figure in the pit. So he knows it from the inside, and he can see it from the outside. The main man is Bobby Nutt, who's is a comedian from the area, and his son plays an important part. And everyone has it's from the locality. The dialect, if you hear the original dialect, is very special. It's one of the oldest forms of English in the language, and it's that the dialect represents the traditions and the of our history. It's not like contemporary English. It has a sense of the past. So we had to make our own pit, because of course we couldn't film it underground. Make a little junction where you'll see it, and it was the hottest summer, and it was very hot in our pit. So that's the first film. It's the comedy of miners who should be working, but actually preparing the pit in a way it is never normally seen, that make it look clean. And secondly, the second film is the tragedy, or the drama, serious drama, when things go wrong. And of course, that is a daily threat to the miners. There is always that danger. There are so many cases where maybe men die, maybe a lot, maybe not so many, but there's always a danger underground. And this is the story of one such disaster. And again, this is when the mine belonged to the people, but there was still that contradiction, because the managers and the government wanted more coal without paying more money. They wanted more coal delivered quicker, faster and faster. And that was against the necessity for safety. If you obey all the safety rules, the mining is slower because you have to take precautions. If you just speed up, it's more dangerous. The manager is saying speed up. And of course, what happens? It is dangerous. So that's or disaster. So that is the essence of that story. And it is the same characters in both films. It's quite an angry film underneath it, because although the people are good, I mean, they always have good humor, but when they see this conflict, then they are desperate for their comrades, but they're also anxious and also angry. Again, it is the same people who made us smile in the previous film, and now they weep. The little boy in both films is quite important. In the first film, the royal visit, we end on him, and the ending, I hope you get the point of it. He's doing something sensible. My father's family were all miners, not my father. He began in the coal mines and learned his trade as an electrician, but he left. But my grandfather, my uncles, and their generation before them, they were all miners. And I knew their house. Of course, it was a small house. There was a family of 10 in a house with 2 bedrooms. And so the miners didn't get well paid. The wages were very low, and the job was very dangerous. And I remember seeing them come home black, and they would get washed in the kitchen. And it was a tough life. So when we came to do the film, I had an idea of the miners' lives. But Barry Hines lived in a mining village in this area in South Yorkshire, at the heart of a mining area. And his stories of the mines, his father was a miner, and the mining features a lot in Kess, in the film he did with Barry a few years before this film. And so the harsh lives of miners, but yet the importance of mining as an industry were very present, because the coal allowed the industrial revolution to happen. That was the fuel that drove the machines for the industrial revolution that began in the early 18th century and carried on until it finally our production faded away, and we lost the impetus for producing things, and now we provide services. It's my personal experience of knowing miners, but since we did this film, I've met lots and lots of miners and heard their stories, and now there's a big move since the pit closed. The pit shut by Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s and 90s, and the stories of the miners are being remembered and written about, and not only their stories to remember them, but to remember the importance of their struggle. That's the important thing. They were the most powerful trade union, and they were wiped out, and that's the important thing. But the miners have a very, we call it a dry sense of humor. They don't throw their heads back and laugh, but the humor is in the understatement. And Barry Hines' friends, the old miners, when they saw the film, and the mines were still very active then in the 1970s, Barry said to them, "What do you think? Did you see the film?" And they said, "It was not too bad," they said. Now, for them to say it was not too bad means they thought it was okay. They thought it was good. And they would never say it's good. They would never say it's excellent, well done. They'd say it's not too bad. And that understatement is typical of the miners' humor. And the postscript, the last thing I want to say is that in 1984, this is after the films were made, Margaret Thatcher waged her war against the British working class. She defeated union after union after union. Only the miners stood out against her as she tried to drive down wages, make conditions worse, generally weaken organized labor. 1984 was a decisive moment. If she wins, then neoliberalism, the power to big corporations to have cheaper labor, bigger profits, expand in any way they want, they win. If the miners win, then the working class, the unions are stronger, they will get better pay, better conditions, and Thatcher will not be able to begin the program of neoliberalism. This is the most important struggle in our post-war history, 1984. The other unions, sadly, did not support the miners. The leaders of the left part, the Labour Party, like Starmer now, did not support the miners. A lot of people did. We had big collections, marches through towns, a lot of support, but the big guns stayed silent. And the miners, after a year of struggle, that strength, strength, then they lost. And the future of our country, and I think the future of Europe, and I think possibly it echoed around the world, possibly in Japan, I don't know. But that victory for the big corporations was devastating for us. And that was the miners who lost. So the miners have played a huge part in our history, in our working class history. And that is what we want to say today, because as we now face the climate change, in our country we face poverty, insecurity, so much wrong, so many people exploited, people getting 2 to 3 jobs just to stay, to put food on the table. Plus we see the wars and the disasters they bring. And in order for us to gain control, again, my message and our message to you is keep the struggle. Remember the power, the strength and the struggle of the miners. That's what we have to remember, and we have to keep that struggle again. Anyway, good to see you, and thank you for watching the film. Hope you enjoy it, and all the very best.
Today I had a phone call from the area director, and he informed me that this colliery has been chosen for an official visit.
She was a travelling along the highway. She made a call on her and the seat inside every down.
Well, what's this here? I don't know. It's about something to do with your visit that they're on about. Must be important anyway.
Good morning, Lord.
Why should you do that?
There's
99% of the men want in this visit.
Oh, some vandals will have put it on during the night, I should imagine.
Some vandals, some pillock, you mean?
Extremists.
Look, they don't fool me, riding down in a bleeding Rolls Royces, waving and shaking hands with foot. There's never been a king or queen yet who's done one thing for working population of this country. We haven't, it's not very good, lad. I'm sorry to have to tell, there's 8 men missing.
What about my dad?
And that's why my mum's gone, because the thought that my dad might be. She's just gone to see what's happened. She says you have to stay here, Ma.
Right, Pete, Harry, Lawrence. Yeah. We all go up this side. I want to yoke top the way down and go back in.